Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavarinda ki, Gaur Premanandi. Well, double congratulations to all of you who made it. You found the place. It wasn't easy. And I do hope you found a parking place, because that also wasn't easy. I don't know if I picked the right topic, but I thought to speak on one verse from a series of verses from Canto 1, Chapter 7 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 1, Chapter 7, starting with verses 4, 5, 6, and 7, 1.7.4, 5, 6, and 7 are very important verses, foundational verses that establish the principles behind the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. So look at that. The context is going back to Canto 1, Chapter 4. I'm going back to Canto 1, Chapters 1 through 3. The message of Srimad Bhagavatam, in one sense, can be summarized in those first 3 chapters, a series of questions by Sutta Goswami, to Sutta Goswami by the sages of Naimisharanya, and Sutta's response. 6 questions, 6 answers that are foundational questions and foundational answers that, when expanded, make the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. And he's pretty good. It's like only a little sound from little boy. Okay. I hear a tape, a recording of Prabhupada chanting japa. Can you do something with that? So after those first 3 chapters comes the next 3 chapters, 4, 5, and 6. And in the beginning of chapter 4, because the foundation has been set, 6 questions, 6 answers, comes another question. And the next question is, please describe how Srimad Bhagavatam manifested itself in this world. So the answer is given in chapter 4, where Vyasadeva is the primary person that chapter 4 focuses on. Vyasadeva, being Trikala Gya, knower of past, present, future, he looks into the future and he sees Kali Yuga, because he comes at the end of Dwapara Yuga, the beginning of Kali Yuga. He looks into the future and sees what a situation Kali Yuga is. And so he wants to do something. He wants to do something to minimize the pernicious effects of the age of Kali. And so, being a literary person, he decides that contribution that he could make is to take the Vedas, which were previously one and based in sound, to divide it into 4 and to put it in writing, to make it easier for people in Kali Yuga who be able to become knowledgeable in the Vedas in a written form, and also divided in sections. So he did that. And he entrusted each of the 4 to one of his disciples, and he had a little team that they worked on preserving that particular portion of the Vedas. And then came the Puranic portion, and then came Vedanta Sutra, and all of that is described in chapter 4. He put someone in charge of each of those. And then he did what most people do many people do when they complete a task that's taken a lot of effort, and he wants to evaluate how did it come out. And as he steps back and looks at how it came out, he feels something. He feels not satisfied. And he's pondering, why am I not satisfied? Why was there something done that wasn't right, something wrong? Why am I feeling this way? And the chapter 4 ends with Narada Muni coming to pay a visit to Vyas, coming at the right time and saying the right things and sorting it all out. So he visits, chapter 5 begins, where Vyas asks Narada, I'm not feeling so good about this, so why not? And so Narada says, well, you did everything nicely, but everything you've written is from the Vedas, so it's just written in a written form now. And your feeling is because you haven't sufficiently glorified the personality of Godhead. In other words, a vast portion of the Vedas deals with karma kanda. Karma kanda means rituals that deal with people having a desire and fulfilling the desire by a certain ritual, propitiating a certain deva or devi to get that desire fulfilled. In this way, the Vedas are sometimes compared to a desire tree from which you can get any fruits or any production. You just have to know the right mantras and the right procedures, and needs or desires can be fulfilled by the desire tree of the Vedas. And while that was there, abundantly, you've done it. But people in this world, they already have strong tendency to be enjoyers of the material, and you've simply encouraged it or endorsed it or given validity to that interest they have, and insufficient direction from that position to the position of the worship of the Supreme Person. So then he gave him an instruction towards the end of chapter 5. The end of chapter 5, he indicates, in trance of meditation, absorb yourself in such a way that whatever it is that you realize in trance, make that the completion of your work. And then in chapter 6, Narada describes he did something similar. The Acharya doesn't say do. You say, do what I do. So he describes his previous life. Narada in chapter 6 describes his previous life as a little boy, and how he became Narada from the activities of his previous life. Association, so that's principle based. So he was an obscure nobody, the son of a maidservant, no indication even of who his father was, even if he knew who his father was, son of a maidservant. And his mother was engaged in caring for whoever came to the inn or the dharmshala, particularly during the 4 months of the rainy season. There's that description. Some elevated Bhaktivedantas came and stayed at that place. His mother was taking care of their necessities. He, as a little boy, was doing little boy things, bringing their meals, whatever else, washing their clothes, whatever else he did as a little boy, and hearing their topics. He would sit for 4 months and hear their topics that they would discuss amongst themselves. And he was very simple-minded. He wasn't playful like some little boys, specifically it says. He was just very peaceful, and they appreciated his qualities. They appreciated his character. They gave him some Mahaprasadam, and that had a transforming effect on him. And gradually, they trained him in a process of meditation, and they gave him transcendental teachings. And then at the end, they left. 4 months of the rainy season was over. So he has now sadhu sangha and bhajana kriya. And he then was to just practice it. So after they left, doesn't say how long after they left, his mother died. She died in an unfortunate manner. She was going to get water from the well. On her way to get water from the well, a snake bit her and she died. So here's this little boy having no father, no mother, and only this wonderful association of the Bhaktivedantas. And so chapter 6 describes what Narada did for the rest of his life. He just went here and there, traveling by foot, visiting this place, visiting that place, seeing the world, and every day absorbing himself in that practice that was given to him. And one fine day, Lord Vishnu gave him darshan. And then as he was in meditation, and suddenly he was startled because Lord Vishnu disappeared. And then a voice from Lord Vishnu saying, essentially, normally I don't disclose my identity to ordinary people or to people who are not fully qualified, but to show my mercy to you, I did. And you're not going to see me for the rest of your life, but please continue for the rest of your life, just as you've been doing. And at the end of your life, you'll come to me. And so he did. And at the end of chapter 6, Narada narrates, at the end, this is in the previous day of Brahma. So that means there was a night of Brahma in between this day and the next day. So during the night of Brahma, Narada in his spiritual form doesn't describe the technology of all this, but he was within the body of Vishnu. The next day, in the morning of Brahma, he was manifest as the direct son of Brahma. And for this day of Brahma, he is the son of Brahma, doing what Narada Muni does. So he's essentially saying, as I did, you should do. And that ends chapter 6, and chapter 7 begins, which is what we're discussing this evening. Chapter 7 begins with Vyas doing what Narada instructed him to do. He went to the sacred river, touched the water of the river for purification, sat down in samadhi, in a trance of meditation. So that was the first part. And then he had some realization. And the realization was supposed to be the foundation for his rewrite. I say rewrite, meaning an edited version. It's a detail, but it's important to capture this detail. Originally, when Vyasadeva did his writing, the Bhagavad Purana was there, but in a capsule form, where the essence of the Bhagavatam was there. And that's the Chaturshloki verses of the Bhagavatam found in Canto 2, Chapter 9. That's another essence of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. But so in his trance of meditation, it describes in the verses that I'm going to read one of them, that's also foundational verse, 4 of them. So 1.7.4, 5, 6, and 7. So I'm going to be reading 6, because before coming here I covered 4 and 5. So if you have a way of looking at the verse, you can look at the verse. 1.7.6. So I'll summarize the first two. The first in 4, he fixed his mind in trance. Samyak praniyate malay. Bhakti yogena manasi. Samyak praniyate amale. He fixed his mind in amala, in complete pure absorption in the personality of Godhead. Nothing else. Squeaky clean. Absolute absorption in the personality of God, which was the instruction of Narada. And then came the realization of what he experienced. And he experienced, in simple language, 3 things. Purusham Purnam. Apashat, he saw. Purusham Purnam. Purusham Purnam means the Supreme Person in full. Purusham Purnam. Jiva Goswami says Purusham Purnam means he saw the form of the Lord, he saw all the forms of the Lord, he saw the energies of the Lord, material energies, spiritual energies, he saw the whole show. Purusham Purnam, because it's not just a light. He saw everything in full. Purusham Purnam. And he also saw Maya. Maya meaning the external energy. There's Yogamaya and there's Mahamaya. He saw Mahamaya. Mayam cha tad upashrayam, under his full control. The indication is we don't see the Supreme Lord because there's something blocking our vision between us and the Supreme Lord. And guess who that is? Or what that is? It's Maya. So Maya was withdrawn under his control and his backside, behind him. And you could see, there's the Lord with his fullness, and there's his Maya behind him under his full control. There's many more details, but that's verse 4. And then verse 5. Yaya samohito jiva atmanam trigonatmakam. He saw the influence of this Maya potency to bewilder the living entity. The bewildered living entity can't perceive what's what because of the bewildering influence of Maya. Yaya sammohita jiva atmanam trigunatmakam. According to the modes of nature, there are different bewilderment and bewildering features. Paropi. So the living entity that's bewildered is para. Although paropi, he gets bewildered by this potency of the Supreme Person, Purusham Purnam. Anartam. Anartam, we know what that one is. There's artha and there's anartha. Anartha is things unwanted. But most of the time, people want unwanted things. And therefore, it's like tar. It's sticky. You can't get rid of it. Even if you want to get rid of it, you can't get rid of it. But most people don't want to get rid of it. They like unwanted things. So those unwanted things stick like tar or some sticky paper or something to the living entity. Paropi manyute anartam tatkritam chabipadyate. And so then there's this action and reaction of the deluding potency keeping the living entity bewildered. And in this way, living entity undergoes actions and reactions of material miseries. That's text 5. There's good news. Get ready for some good news, because the other part is like, boy, that's not nice. But here's the good news. Text number 6. Anartha pashamam sakshad bhakti yogam adhoksaje lokasya janato vidvangs chakre satvata samhitam. So we know what this anartha is. We already mentioned anartha is things unwanted, or in the word for word, it's things superfluous. Upashamam, there's mitigation. So the diminishing or mitigation process of anarthas or unwanted things is sakshat bhakti yoga, the linking process of devotional service. Unto whom? Unto adhoksaja. Now going back to Canto 1, Chapter 2, the word adhoksaja appears there also. Bhakti yoga adhoksaja. I find it fascinating. So I'll just share the fascination that I feel. Devotional service means Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam, means Rishikesha, the master of the senses, one is to use the senses in the service of the master of the senses. How do you do that? There's objects of the senses, and you connect the object of the senses through your senses with the master of the senses in the mood of service. Very important. In the mood of, it's an offering of service and love with feeling and, purpose, both. This morning at 6:30 a.m., I was giving a class to the devotees in China, through a translator, of course. And one of the messages that it was in what we discussed with the Chinese devotees this morning at 6:30 a.m. was the same concept. The concept is the proper use of things of this world. There's a nice Sanskrit word. The proper use of things of this world is to engage them in the service of that person from whom these things of this world have come. And that's the proper use of these things. And if one doesn't recognize that, then you're in trouble, or you're in Maya, or you won't find happiness. You'll find gratification of the senses to a tiny degree, but you won't find happiness, because happiness is not the senses meet sense objects and you go, woo, 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 that was nice. That's not what happiness is. That's not what happiness is. So when it won't feel happiness, won't experience happiness, but very stubbornly, obstinately, one will carry on with trying to find happiness where there's no happiness. So the happiness comes, one more time, is by recognizing there's a source of things and connecting those things with the source of things. That's the linking process of bhakti, bhakti yogam. And to whom is one to link? Adhoksaja. Wait a minute. What does adhoksaja mean? Adhoksaja means one is beyond the senses. Can you please do that again? You're supposed to engage your senses in the service of one who's beyond the senses. How do you do that? Close your eyes, and because he's beyond. Even if your eyes are open, you can't see because he's adhoksaja. Aksaja and adhoksaja. Aksaja means eyes, and adhoksaja means beyond the perception of the eyes to see. And we're supposed to live our life like with a blindfold that I can't see, and I'm serving what I can't see. But it's not like that. So with these eyes one cannot see, yes. But It's a big and important but. The experience of connecting with He who is beyond the senses to see happens not at the sense level, but happens at the heart level. Oh. So you have to have your heart oriented towards Adhoksaja, who is beyond the senses, but with faith in the bhakti process that comes from the source of everything, this Adhoksaja personality, Parama Purusha, or Purusham Purnam from the previous verse, you can connect and you can have a direct experience of that relationship with the Supreme. It does require faith, not blind faith, but faith resting upon Shabda Praman, the knowledge of the Scriptures. Say it the other way. Without knowledge of the Scriptures, good luck. Without knowledge of the Scriptures, ignorance. Without light, there's darkness. What's life like without light? What's this material universe? It's darkness. This material universe is a place of darkness. Without light, it's darkness. You can't see anything without light. So when there's the light of the Bhagavat, or the light of transcendental knowledge, jnana dipena bhasvata, when there's a lamp of transcendental knowledge, then you can see things. Not with these eyes, but the seeing is through the lens of Scripture, Shastra Chakshusha. One can perceive one who's beyond the senses, Adhoksaja, through the medium of bhakti. But it's not with these eyes, it's with the medium of bhakti. But one can, just as prior to this, Narada said he saw. Lord Vishnu disclosed himself, gave his darshan to a little boy. And he was astonished. And then Lord Vishnu withdrew that vision. So it's not that our perfection, or the bell will ring. We will have achieved what we're supposed to achieve in bhakti if we have an actual darshan of the form of the Lord in this lifetime. That may happen. It may not happen. But whether it happens or doesn't happen, that's not the standard of, the goal is to have direct darshan of the personality of Godhead. If that's not the goal, then what's the goal? The goal is to develop our loving relationship with the Supreme Lord, and He'll disclose Himself to us however He wants to disclose Himself to us. In the course of all the activities I was engaged in preparing for this visit to Detroit on Lord Nityananda's appearance day in those 3 parts, one of the most outstandingly wonderful passages I came across was Srila Prabhupada in Caracas, Venezuela, in February. It didn't say that it was on Gaur Purnima, but it's around Gaur Purnima Day. Caracas, Venezuela is not, it's not the hub of the universe. It's a very remote place. I mean, it's a big city, but it's a very remote place. And Prabhupada was visiting in Caracas, and they had Gaurnitai deities that they had recently installed on the altar. And Prabhupada was sitting on the Vyasasan, the description goes, and he was seeing the deities, and he started to cry, appreciating how merciful our Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, they're personally with us. They're personally before us, here in this remote place, a remote part of the world, Caracas, Venezuela. Now they're there because of Prabhupada's bhakti. And he had awakened through his bhakti, the bhakti of devotees in Caracas, Venezuela. He wrote the Bhaktivedanta purports. They were translated into Spanish. Some Spanish-speaking devotees learned Prabhupada's books, started teaching Nam Sankirtan, and here comes Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, giving their darshan. And Prabhupada was crying. How merciful are these lords? Here they are before us. It wasn't very clear. Experience wasn't, this is nice, here's a deity form in a remote place. But it was Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda have appeared here. They're before us. Just see. So that may be the direct darshan of the Lord in seeing his deity form. We may not recognize it. We may recognize it. We may not recognize it. But the mercy, Krishna's mercy comes to one who carefully hears the message of the linking process. That's why I'm covering these 4 verses. 1.7.4567. I think tomorrow evening I'll do 7. That's how I'm thinking. And this is 6. So the linking process of Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti Yogam Adhoksaje. So the first 2 lines. Anartha Pashamam Sakshat Bhakti Yogam Adhoksaje. Lokasya, Lokasya, the general mass of people, Lokasya Janata, that's everybody. Those who are unaware of, Lokasya Janata, Vidvans. Vidvan means one who has vid. Van, possessor of vid, knowledge. Vidvangs. Chakre Sattvasa Samhita, compiled, that's Vyas, he's the compiler, he's the Vidvangs, and he's the Chakre Sattvata Samhitam. Sattvata, in relation to Sat, in relation to the Supreme Truth, Samhita is, Srimad Bhagavatam. He compiled. He did, what's written here, is he did what Narada told him to do. Sit in a trance of meditation, and you'll get some realization. Krishna, I benedict you. I'm foretelling what will happen. You'll have a darshan, you'll have a vision. And that vision should be the basis of your rewriting. So what Vyasadeva did after this realization, he went back to the Bhagavad Purana and expanded it from 4 essential verses. I mentioned this already. Some of you came a little bit later. But there are 4 essential verses that are the foundation of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. And they're found in Canto 2, Chapter 9. And so he then expanded on those and came 18,000 verses. So that expansion is resting upon these verses. So essential, go through it. I'll read the purport, but just quickly summarize. He saw in trance Purusham Purnam, the absolute truth in full. In full means everything. Matter, spirit, and the controller both. Varieties of matter, varieties of spirit, and the controller both. Jiva Goswami goes on to say he saw the river Jamuna, he saw Govardhan Hill, he saw the lords of the Dham, he saw the devotee, he saw everything. Krishna's loving associates in the spiritual world. He saw everything. Purusham Purnam. And he also saw behind the Supreme Lord was Maya under his full control. Then next he saw how that Maya, not under the Lord's full control, will bewilder the living entities into thinking, forgetting who they are and thinking who they aren't is who they are. And in this way, being caught in the complexities of Trigunatmakam, the 3 modes of material nature, bewildering the living entities. So he saw the living entities in enlightened state, he saw living entities in the bewildered state, and he saw the means of overcoming the bewildered state, the linking process. Bhakti Yoga Madhoksaje. I mean, it's not that all of that is repeated in many varieties of ways throughout the whole of the Bhagavatam. It's not new or different or something like that understanding. It's fundamental. And then upon that, it's expanded and expanded and expanded and expanded and expanded. To say he saw Sakshat Purusham Purnam, for example, that includes all the avatars of the Supreme Lord. So how much of the Bhagavatam is describing the avatars of the Supreme Lord? A lot. Going back to Canto 1, Chapter 3, that was one of the 6 questions. One of the 6 questions was, please describe, O Sutta, please describe the forms of the Lord as they appear in this world. So he does that in Canto 1, Chapter 3. He gives a list. First he starts with the Vishnu forms, and then the avatars of the Vishnu forms, and then states that amongst those avatars, one is the source of all avatars, or the avatari, Lord Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. And then it's further expanded and further expanded. Things get easy for me when there's a picture. So here's a picture. Over here, there's a nice devotee making garlands. And maybe somewhere, some of you have, some time during your life, you've made ghee wicks. Ever made ghee wicks? Here's how you make ghee wicks. You take a little bit of cotton, a little bit of ghee, and you dip the cotton in ghee, and then you turn the cotton, and you turn it and 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 turn it. It gets real tight. And then, it has a flat bottom because you can rest it on something, a nice skinny top so you can light it on the top, and now you got a ghee wick. That's how you make ghee wicks. But suppose you have that ball of cotton, and you're, a curious person like you and I probably are curious person. What's this cotton made up of? So you take the ball of cotton and you start pulling it apart. And what do you find it's made up of? Just little fibers. And then you take those, okay, that's what it's made up of, and you put it back together, you get a ball of cotton. You take the ball of cotton and stick it in some ghee, and you tighten it, and you get some ghee wick. But it's just different states. So the ball of cotton is just little fibers. So the Bhagavatam is doing this. Here's the ghee wick, these foundational verses. Now let's go backwards in time, and now here's the ball of cotton, and let's pull this strand, and this strand, and this strand, and this strand. And here's how all the strands fit together. Look at that. There's the ball of cotton. Now let's make a ghee wick and offer it to Krishna. That's what the Bhagavatam is. And that's what these verses are. This is some of the strands. And then you can expand the strands. Like Sakshat Purusham Purnam. Just those 3 words. And that's the Bhagavatam. Or it's a big part of the Bhagavatam. It's forms of the Supreme Lord in his different incarnations in the different phases of time, doing different things. And by good fortune, we have acharyas that we can go to, and they can not only know what this strand of cotton fiber looks like, but in different ages, how it looked different. What do I mean by that? Before coming here, I was thinking about what I might be speaking about when I go to Thursday evening to Harmony Collective. And I thought, tell stories, new people. So I was looking at the story of Muchukunda. Some of you are smiling. Muchukunda is a nice story. But I'll just share something with you. Jiva Goswami describes some details of Muchukunda from a previous day of Brahma that's different than the Muchukunda in this day of Brahma. Like, where did he get that information, please? It was disclosed to him. And such persons they're not fiction writers. Truths are disclosed to such persons. And they very kindly, because we don't have access to those passwords for that higher information, they just share it with us very liberally. So there's details of Muchakunda's life in a previous day of Brahma that's different than this much. And what do we know about either one of them? We know from Scripture. And we know from our acharyas that help explain, elucidate, that here's this strand of cotton, and here's this other one that looks like it, but it's a little different. And you can make a gigwick out of it and offer it to Krishna. And that's our life. It's like, it's not just curiosity. I mean, there's curiosity, but the curiosity is not, oh, I have more information, but the curiosity is, how wonderful is my Krishna? This is Prabhupada. Theism, something that I've grown to appreciate about Srila Prabhupada, and one of the many things, is that genuinely he had appreciation for other traditions. Because when the other traditions were being properly followed, like I just heard a recording, Prabhupada was describing seeing a young Muslim boy sitting there reading the Quran, during some part of his grahastha life. And Prabhupada was expressing, this is very nice. The young Muslim boy reading the Quran. It wasn't like, why is he wasting his time reading the Quran? Because he should be reading the Bhagavatam or something. That's not his heart. But then if you're going to read the Quran, then follow it. Or if you're going to read the Bible, then follow it. If you can read the Bhagavatam, then follow it. So, he was strong. And then the same thing. If one can understand that God is great, very good. Now, tell me what you know about God. How much are they going to tell you? Because they don't really know. It's notional, which is nice. But, how great is God? So the Bhagavatam has this greatness. And for example, a great devotee like Muchukunda appears in different days of Brahma during the duration of the lifetime of Brahma, which is the duration of one universe. And there's so many universes and so many Brahmas and so many days of Brahma. Where's that understanding, the greatness of the personality of Godhead? So hearing these things is not just for information, my point is. It's not just information. Oh, now I have another piece of information to know and show and share and like that. It's not information-based. It's the appreciating the unlimitedness of the unlimited. And here's some more, and here's some more, and here's some more, and here's some more. Wow. I hope Deva Madhava says it's a good idea. He says a good idea? Okay. If you don't come to the Harmony Collective, listen to the class or hear the recording of the class, because I'm gonna be like, I'm already excited before I even get there. It's so flavorful. It's so rasa filled. The descriptions of the personality of Godhead and His loving devotees. What Vishwanath, one little detail, what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, it is in a previous day of Brahma, because in a previous day of Brahma, Muchukunda was living during a previous yuga cycle, not just a previous day of Brahma, but a previous yuga cycle, and he was really huge. So some of the paintings show him. he's like this, and Krishna's like this, because he's from a previous yuga. And Krishna's thinking, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is sharing, Krishna's thinking, I have to kill so many demons, because he just had begun of killing Kalyavana through Muchukunda, and then he had yet to deal with Jarasandha. That comes later, and so many Shalva and so many. And if as soon as they see Muchukunda on the battlefield, they're going to run because he's so big. So he then, on a pretext, said something to Muchukunda. And the something that he said to Muchukunda, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, was, while you were king, you were engaged in kingly duties of hunting, and while hunting, you killed many animals, so you're going to have to purify yourself. You go to the Himalayas and sit in meditation, this giant, Muchukunda. And in your next birth, you become a Brahmana, and then you can be with me and you come to me. But there's no karmic reaction for a Kshatriya that does a Kshatriya duty. The hunting is part of a Kshatriya's duty. There's not karma for doing the Kshatriya's duty. But it's a pretext, because he didn't want Muchukunda around when he had to kill Shalva and all the other ones. It's like, where is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur? It's realization. Now, if we do have faith, and if we don't have faith, if we have faith in the Scripture, and we have faith that the fact that the Scripture can bring persons to the position, us included, by the way, to the position of becoming purified, like completely purified, that the intention is to become purified, not just a little bit. I mean, that's nice too. But the intention is to become, the opportunity being given to us, the purpose of the human form of life is, here's the mission of the human form of life, and here's how to perfect it. Not just mitigate the sufferings, but keep going, and keep going, and keep going, and keep going. Sometimes devotees ask, is it really possible? And, we've spent, at least I spent the weekend discussing about Lord Nityananda, and it's not only possible, there's mercy involved, and there's taking shelter of one who can give that mercy involved, but it's not only possible, that's the invitation. Please take it. Please take it. It's not mechanical, it's devotional. That purification is needed, but it's a very sweet kind of purification. Not a painful kind. It's not the austerities of a tyagi or something. Go to the Himalayas and here's a detail. Who was when Jarasandha came for the 18th time to attack Mathura, simultaneously he came from the east. Kalyavana came from the north. Who was the father of Kalyavana? Kalyavana was the son of a Yavana king who was unable to produce sons. So he requested Gargi to do that service. Gargi, this is Thursday evening class, tune in please. Gargi was the son of Gargamuni. Who is Gargamuni? Gargamuni was a Brahmana in Mathura, very elevated, and Gargi was his son. So Gargi was insulted. He was called bad names. He was called a eunuch by some Brahmanas. He felt he wasn't qualified like his father. He felt insulted. So he went to the deep south of India, and for years he engaged in severe austerity. every day he would eat powdered iron rust, a handful a day. Yummy. Lord Shiva came, what benediction do you want? I want to have a son who will bring terror to the Yadus because they made fun of me. Get back. So the austerities of bhakti is not like that. A handful of iron filing rust every day for years. It's not. It's not our process. Our process is Kevala Ananda Kanda. But the Kevala Ananda Kanda is meant not just do we have a nice time, it's meant to make our hearts pure. And like we were hearing about Lord Nityananda, being then eligible to enter into Radha Krishna's activities in their association. That's where this train is going. When you get on the train, that's where that's the destination. The Gornitai trains, all aboard. And don't just go for a ride. There's the purification involved. But it's Kevalananda Kanda. Completely. And hearing these wonderful pastimes of the personality of God. So back to Canto 1, Chapter 7, Text 6. He, Vyas, compiled Srimad Bhagavatam as the means of helping the living entities who were Yaya Samohita Jiva. Atmanam Trigunat, although they're paropi, although they're transcendental, thinking otherwise and suffering and struggling. So Vyas, we just read it, he compiled Srimad Bhagavatam for us to free us from that illusion. So please take it. And what's the life that's free from illusion? It's life in the spiritual world. What's that? We have to read Srimad Bhagavatam and hear from our acharyas what that is. It's just, here it is, take it. But we're distracted. Okay, be distracted. Read Srimad Bhagavatam anyways. And, regularly read Srimad Bhagavatam and something happens. The distraction becomes attraction. Slowly, in good association and everything. Trying sincerely to understand the process, apply the process, and take shelter of the sound vibration of the holy name, the sound vibration of Srimad Bhagavatam. Take shelter of the mercy of our great acharyas who are representing all these things. Render service as best you can, sincerely trying to please Krishna in whatever ways you do your service. Making ghee wicks or making garlands or cooking or singing or dancing or thising or thating. And tomorrow is going to be text 7. That's the sequence. So one of the things I appreciate about these verses is Jiva Goswami in his Sandarbhas refers to them about 10 times. It's like a refrain. And he'll go and say something and then come back and say this again. He'll go and say something, come back and say this again. Say something, come back. These verses are foundational. Very important. It's good to let them go in. So I didn't read the purport. You all, if you wish, you can read the purport. The Bhaktivedanta purport. To help his world audience understand the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, these foundational verses. Discussion? It's 7:30. You have something? Okay. Do we have a little microphone? Go ahead, just try. Just try. Yes, Benji magic tricks in his magic trick bag.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I heard you mention in middle that there was one devotee who happened to see a dream from a different day of Brahma. Uh, so while we are still aspiring devotees, or at least I can speak for myself, if I happen to see a spiritual dream where
A spiritual what?
dream,
Dream.
dream,
A
yes,
spiritual dream.
yes.
Uh-oh.
Uh, so how do I process that?
Don't put much value in it. That's what Prabhupada said. Here's what Prabhupada said. Krishna is being very kind, and leave it at that. Don't interpret it, this means that, and all that stuff. We're conditioned souls. Krishna is being kind. That's it. And because I'm saying that because there was a devotee, I won't name the name, but the devotee used to have dreams. At least he said he had dreams. And in the dreams, Prabhupada would say this, and Prabhupada would say that. And he became like a well-known personality where Prabhupada would say things in his dreams. So Prabhupada made this comment. It was a spiritual dream. Prabhupada appears in your dream and tells you something. You're going to go like, wow. Now, how should you take that? There's some mercy. It doesn't mean that that's what Prabhupada wants you to understand. It doesn't mean that. And that's something you should do, or something the devotees should do, or a direction of your life, or something like that. For us, at our stage, some kindness, that's all. Don't interpret it. Don't puzzle. Don't ponder. Grain of salt. Now, advanced devotees, it's another story. You have something?
Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisance.
Hare Krishna.
You mentioned the linking process, Maharaj. Do you mind elaborating a little bit more on that?
Sure. Two things, keeping it simple. Yoga means linking. Yoga means the dictionary definition. Linking, connecting. And the linking process, different systems of yoga, commonly when Prabhupada would use the linking process, he's referring to bhakti. So the linking process of bhakti is as mentioned. Rishikena, that's the senses. Rishikesha, the master of the senses. Engaging the senses, sevanam, in the service of the master of the senses. The service of means for the pleasure of. You're looking up to the one who you're serving. There's a subject, that's you, and there's the object, that's Rishikesh, the master of the senses. And you're engaging favorably your senses in the service of the master of the senses. Doing what? Taking that which has come, stuff that has come from the source, the master of the senses, and offering those things appropriately with a pleasing mood. That the real, the test is the intention. Do you cook?
I don't cook, Maharaj. I bake.
You bake. So supposing you want to cook, you're not so good at cooking, but you want to cook. So what's the success? The success is the intention behind.
Yes, Maharaj.
Because if the intention behind is right, in due course Krishna will give you the ability. Supposing there isn't the ability, Krishna will give you the ability. Now, supposing you just somehow mess up, or it doesn't come out so nice. There's a nice little example of this, not in the cooking department, but amongst Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disciples, there was one, I don't know his name, but he wasn't so good at the skill of singing, but he liked to hear him sing because of the bhakti of his singing. So he would request him to sing, and he would sing sometimes not so well from the musical point of view, but from the devotional point of view, he preferred to the Bengali virtuosos that can go off and round and around all over the place and could do spellbinding musicality, but without the same devotion. Now that's Bhaktisiddhanta. And then there's Krishna. So what Krishna wants is what your devotion is. So that's the linking process.
Yes, Maharaj, thank you.
You want to hear a story?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah? There's two versions. It's when Krishna came on behalf of the Pandavas to make a peace settlement with the Kauravas. You know that? So when he came, Duryodhana knew he was coming. Duryodhana made a make show. It wasn't sincere. It wasn't with real devotion. But he made all kinds of arrangements for a VIP. Banana arches and decorating the roads with rose petals and rose water and musicians and brahmanas and, the whole shebang. And he went outside the city to greet Krishna. Krishna came. He received him with all the formalities of receiving a great personality and said some nice things and then asked Krishna, please come to take your meal at my home. Krishna replied, one may take a meal for one of two reasons. You're hungry or love. Supposing you're not hungry, but someone's really like, please, so you may take something. So he said, I'm not hungry. And in here, in the whole of Hastinapur, there's no love. And so there's only one place where I'll go to eat, and that's at the home of Vidura. You know the story? Yeah? So when he got to Vidura's home, what happened? Vidura's wife was so excited. There's two versions. One, she offered him porridge, because it's very simple, or she offered him banana peels instead of banana. And he ate because it was offered with love. Whereas he wouldn't eat with Duryodhana because there's no love. So that's the linking process. It's the consciousness, of course, if you don't offer banana peels to Krishna, but it was her excitement at getting the opportunity to serve Krishna by offering him what she had. That's the linking process.
Yes, Maharaj, thank you.
Behind you, our host.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much, Maharaj. My question is regarding how to avoid the tendency of mechanically doing the sadhana bhakti, whether it is chanting or deity worship over the period of time, kind of becomes really mechanical rather than kevala ananda karna.
Should I give you a standard answer? The standard answer, I've been doing this for the past year. Sadhu Sangha. And that's the ghee wick. And then you take the ghee wick and you unravel it, and here's this strand and that strand, and hold up the strands and you put it back together and you got the ghee wick. The ghee wick is Sadhu Sangha. And there's some elements. There's some strands of cotton in the ghee wick, along with the ghee. It starts with recognizing there is, for me, there is a tendency to do as a duty, but not out of love. And they're one may lead to the other, but they're different. So how do I move to the heart that it's not just the duty, which is, another way of saying the question. Then there's different things that one can do. That's the different strands of the cotton that makes the giwik. But, it's like her question. What's the linking process? What does that mean? So what does it mean to act from the heart? Which is another way of asking the same question she asked. You got the center of everyone's attention. Congratulations. To move from the head to the heart. It's a classic. So it takes, start with the mode of goodness. And the mode of goodness one of the starts from the mode of goodness is go into a reflective space rather than the performing, getting things done space, passion. What am I doing here? What is this? What's the purpose of this chanting? And when you go into that reflective space, and you actually that's from something deeper inside, you're asking that question. When you're asking that question, here comes this resource, here comes that resource, and all kinds of lights go on. But it starts with asking the question. And this is going to the mode of goodness space, reflecting. What's the mission of life? Ask yourself that question. What's my mission in life? Don't ask the question, and it'll stay mechanical. You can do it, for years, mechanical. But if you ask the question, that's from that reflective space, then different meaningful things will come, and they'll strike you at a deeper level, the heart level, rather than the body only, the sense is doing things, mindlessly. So then I can share. Here's 10 things you can do, the how-to. But it starts with sincerity of wanting to know, inquisitive, jigyasu. So I'll share one with you. Rasamrita put on the wall in the room where I stay this nice little sign that's from Vidagdha Madhava. Vidagdha Madhava is a play, a drama, written by Rupa Goswami, and one of the invocation verses is his glorification of the holy name. And there's 4 parts. And each one of those 4 parts it starts with the glories of the holy name. The glory is it can be many, 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 but there's one that he's chosen in this little 4 lines. I do not know how much nectar the 2 syllables Krishna have produced. That's a glory. There's many, unlimited. How much nectar the 2 syllables Krishna have produced. But it's nectar. Then it moves to the mouth, the part of the body that makes the sound. And then so he's tasting with his mouth the nectar of that which the name 2 syllables Krishna had produced. It appears that the holy name is dancing on the tongue. And thus I desire many, many, in the mouth, and thus I desire many, many mouths. Many, many, too many's. And then when that same sound enters the holes of the ear, so much nectar, how much I cannot estimate. I desire millions of ears. So you move from the glories to the part of the body that makes the sound as you're chanting, the part of the body that's hearing the sound, and then the final is, and when that sound enters the courtyard of the heart, when that sound enters the courtyard of the heart, just now we're getting to the heart, because we're going away from the mechanical to the heart. When that sound enters the courtyard of the heart, the mind becomes stunned, and the senses become inert. Glory, the speaking part, the hearing part, the heart part. Move to the heart. So for me, that's, and I'm looking up at Rupa Goswami, who's disclosing, an answer to your question, how to move from the head to the heart. And so, in sequence, something that I like doing, I don't always do, but it's an access to respond to your question. When I want to go more to the heart and less to the mouth. Anyway, so that's a nice verse, and you'll find it in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and you can meditate. You'll find a way that worked for you. That I'm just sharing something that I do that works for me. I'm looking up at Rupa Goswami. I'm looking at what he's disclosing from the realization, from the heart level, you could say. He's disclosing to me a resource that I can take to go from the head to the heart, to go from mechanical to devotional. 1, 2, 3. So with some period of time meditating on the glories, meditating on the vibrating, meditating on the hearing, meditating on that sound entering the courtyard of the heart while chanting. The name is there all the time, but it's just a focus of the meditation on the name to come to the heart. And there's n number of other facilities. Okay, how's that? Anything more? You want to say something more? You got the microphone like you want to say something more. What else do you want to say?
If you have any more examples, you can.
Oh, that's to one at a time. More is not necessarily better. Better is better. But it's the principle. And as you go along in your devotional life and you're asking the question that I just mentioned, you'll find so many. It's something that resonates with you. But don't let it just resonate for somebody else. Let it resonate for you. And if it doesn't resonate for you, find something that resonates for you that answers that question, that connects with your heart.
Thank you.
And then you abhyasa, you practice. And that's her question, the linking process. Right? Something over here? I don't know where you all found parking places, but somehow we're all here. Go ahead.
Maharaj, really grateful to you for wonderfully explaining the Bhagavatam, especially connecting from chapter 1, those 6 questions, then Narada Muni, Vyasdev, and then specifically focusing on how Vyasdev prepared himself. First he was introspecting and then finally he did that. That was wonderful.
Just read Bhagavatam regularly and it'll be yours.
Somehow, Maharaj, I read these 4 verses, never realized that they are the crux.
Just
So
keep
thank you
reading.
so much for sharing.
Keep reading. It'll be yours.
Thank you.
And then some.
Just one question which I had, Maharaj. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talked about the hierarchy: sense, object, senses, mind, intelligence, and then ego. And we say Krishna is the Rishikesha, but Krishna is the stealer of the heart. So where is the heart's connection here in the whole hierarchy? There is no mention of heart per se. I'm just trying to understand that what is the connection of a heart from that all these perspectives.
Are you referring, let me ask for clarification purposes. Are you making reference to the verse where Krishna says above dull matter is the senses, above the senses is the mind? That's what you're referring to? And why is there no mention of the heart? That's what you're asking?
Or the other way, if I have to put it, you beautifully mentioned that ultimately we are supposed to give our heart to Krishna. He is though Rishikesha, but we are supposed to give him our heart. There is no connection of the heart. We try to work on our senses, we try to work on our mind, we try to work on our intelligence, but at the end of the day, we are looking to give our heart to Krishna. How these all come together at the end, we are actually utilizing all these things like you said, but at the end, the crux is we want to give our heart to Krishna.
Well, I'm looking at our young lady over there who is asking about the linking process. Are you turning into his question? Because he's asking your question. He's just using different words, but it's your question. So, this earlier reference in Bhagavad Gita is Sankhya. There's a hierarchy of the grosser matter, senses are more subtle, mind is more subtle, intelligence is more subtle, false ego is more subtle, and above all is the soul. So, heart is a poetic expression, and it doesn't mean the muscle that's in the left side of your chest. It means the linking process of bhakti, or the means by which one connects with adhoksaja, who's beyond the senses. It's not just feeling, because that takes place in the mind. Thinking, feeling, willing. That's what goes on in the mind. So it's not that the heart doesn't include feelings, but it's not just feelings. On the temporal comes and goes and ups and downs and now you see it, now you don't platform. It's of the soul, above them all is the soul. So the heart, this is my understanding, there's different ways. I mean, there are different ways of explaining what from the heart means. I've heard several very eloquent speakers explain it differently. So I'm not denying that there are different ways of explaining it, but I'll give one or two. It means the soul. It's her question. The linking process. The soul's connection with the Supreme Soul. It's not notional. It's not emotional. It's fundamental. It's we constitutionally, we're beings that are meant for serving Krishna, and acknowledging that. And finding happiness in that, that's from the heart. Yenatma suprasidati. Suprasidati. That's from the heart. When the soul is actually, where is she? When the soul is actually connected to the Supreme in loving service, that's the linking process. That's from the heart. That's what it means. That's what link from the heart means, or what linking process means. It's my real existence. There's the senses and the mind, and there's the intelligence, and there's an ego, and there's all that stuff, the coverings, and then there's me, and there's my relationship with the Supreme, and the linking process is I do that stuff, but it's behind it all is the heart, or my relationship with the Supreme, and feeling On the spiritual platform, that connection, that's the heart. Now, supposing someone's not there, that means they don't have a heart? No, they have feelings in relation to, the body and the mind and the senses and their intelligence and their false ego. It's misplaced. The heart is misplaced. So from the heart, where does it fit in? Your question is, where does it fit in to this picture of these hierarchies of things? It's the soul's connection with the Supreme. And that's who we are. And that's the heart. And when you're connected from the heart, you're acting with self-realization, or at least striving towards self-realization, where I want to be who I really am. And I want to acknowledge that connection with who I really am, with who I'm really connected to, the subject-object relationship. That's the linking process of bhakti, subject-object, and the exchange between the two. That's from the heart. That's what it means. No, that's a lot of words. And you just keep it simple. Just say from the heart. Right? Instead of from the head or mechanical. Yeah.
I think when you answered the whole
Okay.
my question is called basically I was referring to that head to heart, and when you
Okay.
explained about that
Okay.
connection, so like I think the lacking part is basically we do on a routine most of the time, like it becomes a kind of
That's
mechanical, but we don't actually introspect or
it's par for the course. Standard procedure. So, there's nothing wrong. It's duty is good, but it's insufficient. Sadhana is good, and not but and sadhana is sadhana because that the definition that Rupa gives, Rupa Goswami's definition is that it leads to bhava. Supposing it doesn't lead to bhava, then it's not sadhana. If it's sadhana, it leads to bhava. So, where's the train going? When we get on the Sadhana Bhakti train, where's it going? We should be aware, where's it going? And it's not like Krishna's not being kind to us because he's not giving these from the heart feelings, something's wrong with him or something's wrong with me, I'm bad or something like that. It's just that there's cultivation and there's a relationship. And that relationship, we want to be from the heart, we wish to be situated in that relationship consciously and, favorably and meaningfully. And that the realization is going to come from Krishna, whatever Krishna wants. And I'm faithful. That's the from the heart. Something online?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
Question from Shama Gopika Didi. Can neophyte devotees, sadhakas, be pure devotees?
This sounds like a definition question. If you take it, if that's what she's asking, here's a category. There's a sadhaka. And in the big umbrella of sadhaka, there's subparts of that sadhaka that's a pure devotee. Well, it depends on what your definition of pure devotee is. And if it's one who has attained the stage of prema, the answer is no. If it's one who's on the path of Rupa Goswami, the answer is yes. It's just a seed that's not yet matured. Is the seed, so question to the person's asking. And the answer is going to be all of the above. A tulsi is a seed. B, a tulsi is a seed that has been sprouted and there's 2 leaves. D, the C, tulsi is a seed that has sprouted and there's abundant leaves. D, tulsi is a seed that's been sprouted and there's manjaris and many, many, many leaves. And the last one is all of the above. . from followers of Rupa Goswami, they're following the path of Anyabi Lashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Janavritam Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam Bhaktir Uttama. So everyone in the room, you engage in Uttam Bhakti in different stages. Those of us who are followers of Rupa Goswami. So the answer is it depends on how you sorting out your definitions of things. Is something else online?
No, Maharaj, I have a question.
You have a question.
This is from morning class in Farmington Hills, and you were describing about Sudama Brahman, and you said how he disliked material things. Now my question is, you were explaining the difference between detached and disliking. Is one better than the other?
There's variety. Who's better, Sudama or Prahlad? There's variety. Who's more dear to Krishna, Sudama or Prahlad? There's variety. What else? That's it.
I have one more question if
Okay.
you have time. You were also discussing about leading by example. The story of Kardama Muni, where
Yes.
even though he had Krishna as his son.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, because that's a lot of pressure, because you're doing it for somebody else. You're doing it because you'd like to set an example.
Well, you say pressure, and I say nectar. Is love pressure or nectar? You've got to have a question. You always have a question. I gave some feedback to a devotee at in Chicago. I won't disclose. It's really good. I can do it with you because I know you won't feel picked on. When you speak, don't say And next time you say I'm going to make a joke. And then the next time you say I'm going to make another joke, and you'll laugh because you think I'm picking on you, because you'll understand I'm trying to help you. Because in public forums, you're going to at some point be speaking in public forums and doing things, and don't start with It's for lots of reasons. It's distracting. It's just a bad habit. But it's a very common habit. No, he's going to pause. It's good. Pause. Don't say that sound. Watch. Practice. Go ahead.
My question, I'm still trying to understand, still trying to understand the application of Swadharma.
The application of Swadharma in conjunction with something else, or just standing alone? Because I've been using it a lot lately in conjunction with Paradharma. You want to understand how the two relate, or what is you'd like to be clear, what you want to know more about?
Alone, because I'm trying to understand how much should we apply ourselves to our Swadharma. In the sense of it.
At every stage, it's the weight that it carries is greater or lesser depending upon the stage. But according to the stage, supposing someone becomes very advanced, supposing the 6 Goswamis are very advanced, And not supposing, they're very advanced. Do they observe Swadharma? Yes. Are they obliged? No. Why do they observe Swadharma? To show by example. For those that aren't on such an elevated position, it's very important, recognizing their psychophysical nature and, according to Scripture and the guidance of those who are guiding them, they engage accordingly. And the importance is greater or lesser depending upon the scale of one's spiritual evolution. It's one of Krishna's arguments to Arjuna, paraphrasing. If I finally come to the stage of I'm perfect, then can I neglect my duties, my swadharma? No. You'll perform them because you're setting an example. And those that are example setter type of people, they may not observe something when there's a spontaneous exhibition of ecstatic love for Krishna, and they don't do something that normally in a regulative manner they would do, and there's no fault for such a person. And then the next opportunity, they're back to the Swadharma, because they're setting an example. So my answer to your question is it depends on the scale of one's spiritual evolution, how much we rely upon it. It has a purpose, purification purpose. Taking tendencies and connecting tendencies, where is she? With the linking process. Anyone else? Anyone else, but besides that it hasn't spoken, would like to say something? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I have a question like Brahma's day, right? Previous day and say next day, is the activity is same? If that's what I heard from.
What's the punchline? Well, between the one day and the next day, what happens?
Are the activities same? No, so
Activities the same. No, it's similar. There's a spool, but there, as your one day to the next the same? No. And from Brahma, one day to the next the same? No. There's similarities, one day to the next,
okay.
but not the same.
Not the same, okay.
Time moves and there's variety as time moves. He has his morning sadhana. Although, he's a pure devotee. And then he had built the universe. The part of the universe that was dissolved. He rebuilds it. The upper parts are fine, but he has to rebuild the lower parts. And populate them, and the whole thing. Others that haven't spoken want to say something? Otherwise, we're going to circle back around. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I want to get some suggestion from you how to get the more interest towards reading Srimad Bhagavatam and.
Oh, easy. Sadhu Sangha. Associate with those that like to read. And there's so many opportunities for reading. But you connect with something that's existing, find a reading partner, do a little brainstorm, find out ones that work for you, eliminate some ones and do the ones that work for you, and off you go. Sadhu Sangha. And step back and understand, why is it important? You're asking the question means you think it's important. Keep asking it. Why is it important? When something is important, you'll find a way. And if it's not sufficiently understood as important, or my habits and habits are different, then I need to borrow some time and energy from over there and put it over here. Now, what's going to work best is that which enlivens you, and you do that which is going to enliven you, list a little bit, and then let it grow. Good habits, a little bit. Like, starting to chant japa, a little bit, and then it starts to grow. When it's done sincerely, it will grow. Nice question. Yes, over here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So my question is like one should try to remember every moment Krishna, and maybe that may be more easy with this linking process.
More easy what?
That may be more easy with the linking process just you explained. But uh, like in a Gruhastha life, how we can achieve that? Like how we can try to remember Krishna every moment, because we are engaged in so many household activities. And
Do you have children?
yes.
Are you going to ask me how do I get attached to my kids?
No.
They're your life. It's natural for mothers to be attached to their children, or fathers to be attached to their children. Similarly, this is a natural process. And by association, supposing I spent a lot of time somewhere and had association with somebody else's kids, and I start getting attached to the kids, and they start getting attached to me because from association. So associate with Krishna. This is her linking process question. Associate with Krishna, not mechanical, but like this nice example of Prabhupada with Gaura. Here they are in Caracas, Venezuela. How kind they are. And so think of the ways in which the kindness of Krishna has come in your life. Not mechanical, but association. And when there's association, that you recognize and you feel the companionship of Krishna with you, it's easy to become attached. It doesn't mean you'll care less about your children. It just, as with your children, you'll feel attached. It has to go from the mechanical to the heart, right? Otherwise, it stays mechanical, and then it's not at the heart yet.
So maybe like the way of thinking, like how we are grateful, like whatever we have, we have.
Your voice
right
is really
now.
soft, and I can't understand all of what you're saying. We'll turn the volume up.
So is it like how we can think like we are grateful to God, like whatever He has provided?
Gratitude.
Gratitude or mercy.
You hit one of my
or
buttons. Gratitude is the seed of love. It's not love. It's the seed of love. But one can get distracted. Your children can be grateful, and then they can get distracted. You're not going to get distracted. So, yes, gratitude. It's a little bit like this example I gave him about chanting other than mechanical chanting from the heart. Start with, how much nectar the two syllables Krishna have produced. So you contemplate Krishna in a meaningful way, in a real way, especially guided by our acharyas, because we may not have the sense of how much nectar there are in those two syllables, Krishna, how much nectar they have produced. But in association, so then you start to move more to the palpable, substantial Krishna connection experience. Sadhu Sangha again. And then take it to heart. So I like this nice phrase. It comes a few times in the Bhagavatam. Shrinvanti, Gayanti, Grananti. Keep doing the Shrinvanti, Gayanti. Shrinvanti, Gayanti, Shrinvanti, Gayanti, Shravanam, Kirtanam. It goes inside. And then that's your life. Then that's your attachment, and what you're attached to is what you think of.
Thank you, Maharaj.
I feel a profound attachment, honestly, profound attachment for Srimad Bhagavatam. And I carry it around with me inside. So it comes out. What's inside comes out. So you hang around with people that have that inside them, and it's going to be inside you in time. That's the sadhu sangha principle. And the sadhu, one of the meanings of sadhu is devotee. I mean, it's those who are attached to Sat. Those who are attached to Krishna. So in the association of those who are attached to Krishna, you become attached to Krishna. At the heart level. Looking at the clock, it's 20 after 8. I think we're going to end. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai.